Hey guys, welcome to a special mini episode of State of Fear we like to call Rest Stop. Today I will be interviewing Bree Carnegie. She is a paranormal investigator who has worked with Dave Schrader and Zac Bagans. Bree was born in Erie, Pennsylvania. She grew up watching shows like American Haunting and Most Haunted with her mom, which stirred an early interest in the paranormal. As she got older, she enjoyed going to local ghost and cemetery tours, and as reality TV turned its attention towards ghost hunting, so did Bree. Now in her teens and an avid fan of ghost adventures, Bree has attended events at the Mansfield Reformatory and at the Stanley Hotel. Hey Bree.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on here.
Thank you for being on. All right, so let's go ahead and get into. I guess let's go over what got you into the paranormal.
Okay. Not anything significant when I was little. I used to watch the shows like A Haunting and American Haunting and My House is Haunted and all this stuff on those reality shows, the kind of remakes where they would tell stories and have, actor portrayals and all that corny stuff. But I used to watch those all the time with my mom and I absolutely loved them.
Okay.
I got so into it, so fascinated with the idea of people living in haunted houses and dealing with stuff like that on a regular basis and stuff that I had never experienced as a kid. And I'm a very skeptical person as it is. So it was just kind of like a fascinated horror to me, I guess, so to speak.
So have you never lived in a haunted house before?
I have not. No, I've stayed in been in a couple hotels and cemeteries and Mansfield Reformatory and lots of haunted and high activity places, but I've never lived in a haunted house.
Interesting. Okay. I'm actually in the very same boat. I'm really into the paranormal and okay, I should take that back. I was gonna say that I've never lived in a haunted house either, and I am envious people who have, even though most of the time their stories sound horrible and terrible. I'm like, no, that sounds like, that's the place for me to be right there.
Yeah.
Uh, but I, for some reason, popped in my head. I remembered that growing up, so my mom is actually, I guess what you would call sensitive. She has been able to see things since before I was born. Skip my generation, of course, because I don't see anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, growing up, my mom would tell me about things that she would see, and then it's funny growing up in different houses. We'd have friends spend the night, and they would actually see things, and I never saw anything while I lived in any of those houses. So I guess I have technically grown up in a haunted house, but I never actually saw or felt anything. So
Yeah.
I'm still envious.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can see how that kind of would be frustrating growing up almost. And, they
Super.
say the portrayals always make it seem like it's a horrible situation. I'm sure, I sympathize for a lot of families and stuff that did it, but you always say like, oh, if I was doing that, like I would be, I would be so good at it. That's the place for me to be. But I like to think that, I'm just being cocky and that sometimes the situations are not going to be that good. But I am definitely envious of people who have had that kind of stuff happen to them on a regular basis.
It's so funny because I always forget watching those shows because they always, it's an hour show usually, and so they have to fit, all as many of their experiences as they can in an hour, and watching it is like, man, all that happens right after they move in. But I always forget that usually happens over like a 10, 15-year period. So,
Yeah.
they're boiling 15 years down to this 1 hour. So that's why it seems like everything happens back to back when in
Yeah.
reality it happens so sporadically that they forget that it happens.
Yeah, nobody, I mean, guess goes to like an open house and sees that it's haunted and it's like, yeah, I'll take it. Let's sign the check, I guess. I mean, maybe people like you and I would, but I guess not
Yeah.
most would.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, that's why we got into the investigating in the first place, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, so tell me about your first investigation ever. When was it? What was it? What'd you do? All the details. Let's have it.
So, my first real investigation, because when you're younger and you sit in a dark room in like a scary, old abandoned house down the street with your friends when you sneak
Mhm.
out in the middle of the night and nothing ever happens. It's just scary because you're, in an abandoned house in the middle of the night. My first real investigation that I did was the Mansfield Reformatory. And
Oh,
that was the Ghost Adventures crew. So,
okay.
and that's they shot the Shawshank Redemption. And what that started off as, it's a meet and greet, and they hold events, and certain people can, get tickets to do an investigation. And I got a ticket to do that. My mom and her boyfriend at the time were so nice enough to pay for that and take me out there. It's about 4 hours from where I live here in Erie,
Okay.
and um, it's Zach, Aaron, and Nick from, Zach Bagans, Aaron Goodwin, and Nick Groff, and they divide you into groups, and you split up with them, and meet Zach for the first part. And what really got me into, of course, I'm super nervous and super excited, and at this point I'm like 15. I'm like, oh my God, it's Zach Bagans. But I went down into the hole, the solitary confinement of the Mansfield Reformatory. And I mean, like, it's midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and we only have flashlights and night vision, and I'm the youngest one there. But I mean, I had the equipment, I had an EMF detector, I had my EVP recorder, and I was into it. And Zach actually locked me in one of the cells. He shut the door, and
Wow.
there's a recording somewhere. God love her. My mom said watching it after the fact, and she says that she hears Zach go, "I have somebody here for you. She is giving her to you. So if you want to communicate, use her." And my mom's sitting there going, "Oh, please don't be Bree. Please don't be Bree." And Zach goes, "Her name is Bree." And my mom's like, "Oh, Jesus," And she said
Yeah.
that was kind of like her first, like, oh, she's really into this. And my first experience just getting, like, an actual, not like, through like chills watching a TV show or a movie, but feeling the energy that comes off in like an environment that is, full of such a dark energy like that.
Yeah.
It's like static electricity almost. And I remember being young and being in that cell, and I'm obviously nervous, but I'm super excited. And I remember that, just like that wall of energy hitting me, and I felt vulnerable, but I felt, like knowledgeable. Like, I felt like there was, I could communicate with beings that, it's just a phenomenal feeling. And after that, that's really what drove me into it. After he let me out of the cell, my friend Morgan and I had wandered off into, and we're digging through, the basement of it, and we found old glasses, with like, the big frames, and they're
Oh yeah.
smashed in old telephones and stuff. And Zach had wandered off and left us down there by ourselves, but we took it to our advantage. And I remember, for the first time really in my paranormal career, so to speak, feeling just the energy of, the paranormal around you,
Yeah.
all of the excitement and all of the like fear and everything that comes with it. And that's really what set it off. Mansfield
Okay.
story for sure.
So in that investigation, it's kind of a two-part question. What, if any, personal experiences do you have, and what, if any, objective proof did you bring back?
From the Mansfield Reformatory the first time, there was not a whole lot of objective proof, I guess, so to speak. It was all really my experiences, like I said, the energy and the feelings. And when we went off it was in the cell blocks with like the showers and stuff. And at that point, we were with Aaron, who, of course, he had all of his all of his recording equipment and stuff like that. And he asked a bunch of questions, and I remember one. I don't remember the question that he asked. We didn't get any clear, definite answers from this investigation. Or I remember him recording just a scream that was
Oh wow.
and it is, just bone chilling, because, as an
Yeah.
investigator, when you're recording, especially just audio, you debunk stuff. So if somebody coughs, you say somebody coughed, or my stomach growled, or that was a dog barking. And when you're, listening back, and you hear Aaron talking, and, just silence, and you hear a scream and nobody speaks after it to say like somebody screamed outside, it's just, it's
That's fantastic. That's crazy. That sounds cool though.
it was incredible. I was sitting next to him, because I was like, this is literally the most horrifying thing I have ever heard in my entire life. I'm glad I'm with him, but I mean, at the same time, it's just so cool, so unbelievable to get that kind of evidence, even though, and some people, you'll show that to some people, and they're such skeptics, they're still never going to believe it. But
Of course, yeah.
when you listen to it, it's just, there's just no way around it.
So okay, so speaking of which, you earlier referred to yourself as a skeptic. So are you a skeptic? Are you a believer? Are you a skeptical believer? What camp or what type do you put yourself in?
I've never heard the term skeptical believer until you just said it. I think honestly that's a really good way to put it. I am not a naive person in any aspect of my life, if it's, paranormal or otherwise. But I've had enough experiences in my life that I can for sure say that energies and, spirits, and whether or not you believe in demons or ghosts or, auras or any of that stuff, something beyond the grave exists, whether or
Okay.
not you want to believe it. And I understand that people, like, no, that stuff doesn't exist. It's all, BS. And I understand, because I was like that too before, I had any of my own experiences. But I've seen shows where people they get thrown down the stairs or they get hit, and I didn't believe in any of that. I was like, ghosts can't touch you, ghosts can't hit you, ghosts can't hit you. Until at the Stanley Hotel, I'm sure we'll get into this in a little bit. The Stanley Hotel, I did have my first experience where my friend and I were recording in my room, and I went into the bathroom and I had 3 scratch marks over my tattoo on my left shoulder,
Oh,
and
wow.
that is really kind of what did it. That is really kind of what I was ghosts are real and what we're doing is dangerous. That's kind of where you get to that point. When they start to hurt, you're like, oh shit, that kind of is scary. That's dangerous. But
Yeah.
I mean, I really like to see kind of concrete evidence for anything,
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I totally get that. What do you consider concrete evidence?
Stuff like EVPs, and anybody can. It's awful nowadays because anybody can Photoshop anything and anybody can
Right.
edit videos and anyone can make you know audio recordings and stuff that they can kind of manipulate to make it seem like they're talking to a spirit. But to have my own concrete evidence, I searched up and down for my EVP recorder and I could not find it. I had it a month ago and I think I buried it away in my
Oh,
move.
no.
I have to find it. When I find it, I will definitely send it to you so you can upload them. But I still
Oh, yeah,
had
please.
from 2015 2016 where I got my very first crystal clear EVP was at the Stanley Hotel. It was my friend Tiffany Morgan and we were in my room at the Stanley, and we were just goofing around. I was laying on the bed, Tiffany was on the floor, Morgan was by the door. We're like, if anyone's here, say something. If anyone, and we're goofing around because we're 3 girls. We're like, we're single, we're cute, if you want, like, somebody talk to us. And the EVP that I got was, and of course, like I said earlier, we all know to debunk this somebody outside coughing, people, running down the halls, whatever. I got a crystal clear voice that said creeper. And I literally have chills talking about it now. To
Oh,
this
wow.
day, it is the most crystal clear, just the most astonishing piece of evidence. And when you get that yourself and you there and that nobody else was in the room goofing around and making noises, when you listen back to that stuff, it's an astonishing feeling. And there's just nothing like it. It's like a fascinated horror. I was
Yeah.
so
Oh,
excited
yeah.
I got it, but then at the same time, I'm like, I have to sleep here tonight with a man that said creeper when we're talking about 3 girls. But there's just nothing like it.
Well, I'm gotta say I'm definitely jealous because I actually have used the exact same sort of format as that or the exact same call as you. I've tried to tell them, look, I'm single, I'm cute, but it didn't work for me like it did for you. So you're very lucky. I'm very jealous. Um, no, but so what would you say is okay? Yeah, we'll definitely get to the Stanley here in a bit, but what would you say is probably other if it's creeper, then we'll call it that. But other than creeper, what would you say is your best piece of evidence that you've caught since you started investigating?
I have an old video camera, and I still have the camera and I still have the collection of CDs, and it was my old, the old one that my dad took all the home videos on when I was younger. And
Okay.
it's so old that I can't find a charger for it, but I know that somebody out there has to have one, and I will find
Yep.
one, I swear to God. But it was in my room at nighttime. Yeah, I had the night vision on. It was just my friend Morgan and I at this point, probably a little after midnight, I think. And we were goofing around again recording, and most of the shot was just me kind of trained on my EMF detector on my bed. I remember not getting anything on that, and I remember going over the recorder and not getting a lot of that. But there's a small frame where this black mass, this black fog shoots in and then shoots back out. I remember exactly, I was filming by my door, and
Mm-hmm.
the frame was part of the dresser and the door, and just this black mass that shoots in to the right and then shoots right back out. And again,
Wow.
they're just kind of, when you record, because you can see stuff like that all the time on,
Yeah.
Ghost Hunters and all
Oh,
the
yeah.
fun
Ghost
like that.
hunters and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But when you record it yourself on your own, like dad's camcorder, from like 2001, it's there's
That's yeah.
it's unbelievable.
I really hope that you're able to get a charger and get that evidence because I've got to see it. Yeah, I've got to see it. Um, okay, so then let's go into so speaking of like EVPs and asking questions, what would you say is your investigative style when it comes to hauntings? Are you an inquisitor? Are you a provoker? What would you say is your particular style?
I naturally am an instigator in all aspects of my life, with people, with any I like to I'm very pugnacious. I like to fight, I like to provoke, I like to poke the bear. And that's
Okay.
kind of how I've always been. And I think that's kind of where that whole, creeper thing stemmed from, was kind of like, here I am, if
Yeah.
you're real, do something about it, and I've gotten a lot of results from that, obviously. So it seems to have worked for me. I love EVPs. I've gotten so much evidence over the years that I have absolutely zero doubt in my mind that EVPs, it was just my first started with a $40 recorder from Walmart. I didn't have a $300 one because I was younger, but to collect evidence is clear, and as terrifying as I did as creeper. And my friend Tiffany to this day will still laugh about how one of the ones that followed that sounded like a zipper unzipping, and she thinks it is the funniest thing in the world. And I do too. It's very funny, but at the same time, it's like when you have something, you're all sitting still and you're all dead silent, and the recorder's just sitting on the bed, and nothing can kind of provoke a movement like that would make a sound like that. You know, you get all tough and you're all like gung ho about it, and then something like that happens, you kind of step back. You're like, oh shit, but I've always gotten my best kind of evidence being provoking and instigating. It's not
Awesome.
the safest way, and I don't recommend it for everybody, but I've been, knock on wood, lucky enough to not have any super dangerous experiences with that type of investigating.
So what kind of equipment do you use when you investigate?
I went with my, like I said, my $40 EVP recorder, which is it was just a little voice recorder. It had a
Hmm.
little USB slit where you can just kind of push it into your laptop and record it up that way. And
Hmm.
my camcorder, my recorder, video camera, and I had an EMF detector that was, again, not the highest quality. It was probably $50, $60 that I got. Actually,
Okay.
it was a gift, I think, for my birthday. Those were the kind of things that I went with. I experimented, of course, with the apps on your iPhone, but that's all kind of a horse of beef at that point because of all the things that can interfere with it. And I never really believed in any of that stuff on your phone. But those three things are the main things that I always use because I always got the best kind of evidence, the best results with them.
Oh,
It's
awesome.
just simple stuff, not expensive stuff, not the super high tech stuff. And of course, I'd love to have that stuff. I've, used other investigators. Dave Schrader, host of Darkness Radio and
Yeah.
Filter Files. He has, for the life of me, cannot remember what it's called, but it took the EMF, the electromagnetic fields, and it kind of converted them into words in this. It was like a speaker. It almost looked like an iHome. And I remember we were at the Stanley one time. He was walking in circles around it and went fat thighs, and he was like, "Okay, cool." But when it says stuff like that, and Dave is not a fat man. Do not get me wrong. I love Uncle Dave, but but when it's stuff like that, you're like, "Holy cow!" You know. I,
Yeah.
I would love to have something like that, but that was always just so pricey, and I was never, able to get something like that. My simple stuff that I used always got great results for me.
Yeah, so the team that I'm a part of, we have one version that I know what you're talking about. I can't think of off the top of my head what it's called, but we have the one that does not have a screen, so you don't know what word is being produced, but it's got that typical like 80s robot voice,
Yeah,
like a speak and
that's
spell voice,
perfect.
and it's great, but at the same time, it's not the clearest. So as with EVPs, it's up to interpretation
Mhm.
as to what's being said. Interestingly enough, we do get one word, or at least when we were investigating a few years ago, we would get one word no matter where we went, and that word was Cornelius.
Really,
And yeah, and it's weird because we looked up the dictionary not too long after we started getting it, and it's not one of the words that's programmed into that particular model.
really.
So yeah, so how it's getting Cornelius, who's Cornelius, we haven't
Exactly.
figured out to this day, but and we haven't used the Ovilus. That's what it's called.
Yep. You
Um,
got
yeah,
it.
we have not used the Ovilus in a while, but when we were using it, yeah, we would always get the word Cornelius. So much so that we eventually we began a event company, and we started a paranormal convention here in Houston, and we named the company Cornelius Inc. after the ghost
Awesome.
that follows us around. Yeah.
it doesn't have to be, tied to a certain place, but I think that, because everyone's had experiences who investigate have experiences of their batteries draining or their lights not working. I worked with Chip Coffee for a little while too during those Ghost Adventures events, and he was huge on the mag lights. He would just turn them on just enough, so that it would be kind of on the cusp of lighting up, but it wouldn't. He would sit there, and when he'd ask a question and it would flicker, I'm a firm believer that they can use, power and, outlets and batteries and stuff like that, and that they can attach themselves to stuff like an obulus, and so Cornelius is probably something that my mom always told me if I brought something home, I was grounded, and knock on wood, I didn't ever bring anything home, at least not that I knew of.
Right, that you know of, yeah, exactly. What form of evidence do you find more reliable, EVPs or video?
I love EVPs, and I know I've mentioned that several times already because and I am huge on making sure that whenever I am with, if I'm with one other person or a group, that you debunk anything that you hear, because anything can be interpreted as, as evidence, as noise. You can hear a rustle and someone can be like, oh my God, that was a growl from a demon, but you have to be so clear on that. But in videos, in the video that I had mentioned earlier, and it was just my friend and I just panned over, and this black shadow, and to have not seen it when I'm recording on the LCD screen and not seen it like in person, and reviewing it later, I think that there's something to be said for when you catch something so I can't even, it's just so, bizarre on screen. People, take videos and pictures all the times, and they're like, oh my God, it's an orb. And I'm like, no, that's a particle of dust, but it's cute, and, but
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually my next question. I want to know, okay, so since I now dub you a skeptical believer because you hadn't heard that term until now, because that's what I call myself. Like you, I've always been fascinated with paranormal, and I've read all about it since I was as soon as I could read. That's all I would do, is pick up books on the paranormal and supernatural. And I actively started investigating in 2004. And when I started, I was hardcore believer in everything, and any evidence I caught was legitimate paranormal evidence. And now we are 16 years later. What was that, right? 16 years later, yeah. I am a skeptical believer, where even though I have had a few personal experiences, because I don't have objective proof, I don't consider them evidence. I need to have objective proof in order to actually believe it. And as much as I believe people when they tell me their stories, I don't believe them, because the mind tends to exaggerate anyway.
Yeah.
And especially in the past, you either exaggerate the past or you romanticize the past. Either way, you're adding things to it that weren't originally there.
Yep.
So, saying all that to say, what are your thoughts on orbs, visual and auditory pareidolia?
So orbs, I always thought were an interesting topic, only because it's so easy to kind of, take a picture of. So we'll use the Manslaughter Reformatory, because when people think of that, most people associate it with the Shawshank Redemption and old dusty chipping paint, that kind of stuff. If you take a picture in an environment like that, 99% of the time you're going to get some sort of, particles on the picture. And, most people who, I don't want to say are inexperienced, but are inexperienced, look at that and they're like, oh my God, I got orbs on this. And don't understand that orbs, if you take a video and dust particles just kind of float, but orbs have a distinct pattern. And if I ever, and I don't think I personally have ever caught an orb on my own, equipment, but if you can compare it side to side, it makes it so much easier to tell. They're almost kind of like living beings, for lack of a better term, that, dance and have patterns and have specific movements, like they'll dart on screen and they'll go alongside something, and, or a person, and then they'll dart off screen. I think that those, if they are definitely orbs, I think that they are a huge kind of wake of evidence for people, but it's just so hard to differentiate. Most people haven't really had the experience to see that on screen versus just dust. But
okay, and what about pareidolia? What are your thoughts on audio and visual pareidolia?
I Obviously, and I know I've said it before, I said it again, but I love audio. I am all about the audio, and
Mm-hmm.
only if only because I've been taught for to debunk. There's just no way around it if you trust the people that you're with, and you yourself are experienced enough to, if the second the slightest noise that you hear, even if you say I don't know what that was, but something made a noise, there's just absolutely no way to explain some of the stuff that you get. And like I said, video and even audio nowadays is so easy to mess up and to screw with and to make make it something that YouTube will get a million views. Like there's like real life ghosts caught on camera, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so stuff like that nowadays. But if you trust the people that you're with and excuse me, what you're doing yourself, there's just no way to debate some of the things that you can catch. It's
Mm-hmm.
there's just no way around it sometimes. It's so easy on shows like, Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures and all those stuff, because like you said earlier about a haunting, they're squeezing all that stuff into an hour, but they don't tell you that, most of the time that's over the course of, years and years. And
Mm-hmm.
when Ghost Adventures crew, when they do their lockdowns, they're there from sun up to sundown. They're usually there from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's 11, 12 hours, and they have to sometimes the episodes can be kind of boring because they got such little evidence. But and it's so easy to get frustrated when that's the case. It's
Yeah.
so easy to for people like you and I who are skeptical believers, that
Yeah.
it can get really frustrating when when you have personal experience that you're like, that was definitely a spirit. I was there for that. This is unbelievable. Then the next week you're at a different place and you get nothing. It's so easy to be like, this is dumb. There's
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get frustrated and just want to throw in the towel. But it's the little ones like Creeper, that really just kind of make you stop and think that there's something out there, and I've definitely contacted it.
All right, let's get into the Stanley Hotel and what you described, at least in your email, as the craziest shit that happened. So tell us about that.
So I did the Stanley Hotel twice with the Ghost Adventures crew. I've been there 3 times. I went when I was younger, actually, with my family when I was probably 10, and we just explored it. And I remember my dad snuck me up, a couple floors so we could see the room that Jim Carrey stayed in and all that fun stuff. But um, the first experience that I did there, I had stayed with my friend Morgan in a room there, and the second one I stayed alone. And the second one that I did where I stayed alone in my own room, and that was where we got Creeper and the zipper zipping and all that fun stuff. And that was when I had my first physical experience where we were just kind of goofing around early in the day. And I remember going into the bathroom and I had 3 scratch marks down my left shoulder. And I remember literally I bolted out of my room and I went to find Dave Schrader, Uncle Dave, as he made me call him, because I was so young at the time that I was the youngest investigator, so to speak, there, that he called me Uncle Dave so nobody would hit on me or talk to me. And I went to find him, and he was like, "Okay, well, if you're going to open a portal to hell, make sure you know what you're going to do, and don't come crying to me about it." I'm like, "Okay, you're right." That night, I remember they have a channel there that just plays The Shining on loop every
Okay.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because obviously that's what it's majorly known for.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had that on. I fell asleep to it. I woke up and it's a little after 3, which everyone knows 3:30 is the witching hour. And I'm a firm believer in that, because whenever I woke up around 3:30 is when stuff kind of got weird. And I
Okay.
remember waking up and my TV was on. I went to shut it off, put my remote down. I roll back over and my TV came back on. And I remember I was like, maybe the button's sensitive, the remote's weird, whatever. I did it again, turn it off. I'm sitting there looking at it. It's off. I roll back over. It comes back on, and it's just static at this point, and I couldn't get it to change. And that, even though it's not like a physical thing, I personally didn't feel any energy. Like I said earlier, I am an absolute believer that spirits will use any sort of technology they can drain to get, power and communicate that way. So
Mm-hmm.
have it shut off and then turn back on and then shut off and turn back on. And the second time it turns back on, it's not even on the same channel that I had it on. And I at that point I got up and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go sleep with Morgan. And I left. I slept with Morgan in her room that night. But it's that the physical, the getting scratched. That was when we got Creeper. There was another instance. So my friend Tiffany was also there, but she had a separate room. So during breaks when we're not investigating, we're not doing like the meetings, all that fun stuff, all the presentations that they did, we would just goof around. We went down, we got permission to go in. They have a big scale dollhouse in the basement that apparently there's this big story behind where this dollhouse is haunted and there's spirits in that. They gave us the okay to go in, and we crawled in there and sat in there in the dark with our recorders, and we would, try to get as much evidence around the entire building as we could. We're sitting, this time we were in Tiffany's room. And at this time, Mark and Debbie Constantino, both of them have since passed since then, but
Mm-hmm.
they were, I'm sure you know, the renowned EVP experts. They
Mm-hmm.
were phenomenal in their line of work. They knew everything about it. They had all the equipment. They were just fantastic at it. And we were, we were just using a piece of paper at this time, saying, this paper's light. If you want to communicate with us and you can't speak, just move the paper. We had it teetering on the edge of a table, just push it away, whatever. And we got a recording, an EVP of a voice saying "Holy cow" in a whisper that was clear as day. And we didn't notice it until later. We didn't, immediately review the evidence. We'd gone back a little bit later, and we even showed it to Mark and Debbie, and they were just like astonished. And we knew it wasn't us because the three of us were experienced enough to, again, debunk if we whisper something happened, but B, nobody says "holy cow" anymore. Anyway, I think I said it a little bit earlier because I was thinking of this story.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody says that anymore. So it was like that, just a hot spot. I think I was there for just short of a week at that point, but that place is just, it's crawling, and it was never any, besides me getting scratched, nothing ever really kind of terrifying and like sickly. I think it's just a hot spot, I think, that was stirred up with so much activity of people going because of seeing The Shining, and people
Yeah.
going and wanting a ghostly experience and stuff like that. Nothing was ever really threatening besides that one that I got. And even then I got scratched, but it wasn't, I didn't draw blood or anything. It was just marks, and that was the only real physical thing that happened. I don't think anything there was ever really demonic or ever really mean or vengeful for anything. But the evidence that you can get there, I mean, it's literally around every corner. I remember specifically too, the elevator that takes you up in the main hotel building is just constantly static electricity. Like if you
Oh, wow.
touch it in the dark, you can see when you get zapped, which I think
Wow.
is a huge sign of activity in both that and a way for energy to feed off of. So I think that helps a lot too with it being so active all the time, is that everything's just static electricity all the time.
It's funny. I do remember seeing a episode. I think it was Ghost Hunter. Yeah, it was Ghost Hunters when they went to the Stanley, and there's a part where it's like in between the investigations, and they're like in the hallway, and one of them was accidentally shocked by like a metal light that's on the outside of the room, and they realized because there's so much static. So like they would take turns walking up to it while rubbing their feet and then putting their finger on it to see who get the biggest shock. And it was the funniest thing to see. But yeah, I remember that it's that much that stat. I mean, every time they walked across the carpet and went to touch it, they would shock them every single time.
Yep. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because of the energy there or vice versa, if that fuels the energy there. But like I said, we would go into the elevator late at night to go down, and if we touched the button, the lobby, it would just zap us so hard that like it created light that you could see. It got to the point where we were so scared we didn't even use the elevator anymore because we didn't want to get shocked. We would just take the 3 flights of stairs. We're like, whatever, it's worth it. The air is so thin up there that it's exhausting. By the time you get down there, you can't breathe, but it's better than getting shocked.
I would say so. So do you have you done any investigations locally in your area, and do you do residential investigations?
I have done, I think I shouldn't say fun, but the most fun one investigation that I did. So in Erie, a local brewery, it's a brewery and restaurant now, called the Union Station because it used to be a train station. And it's still pretty significantly old fashioned style, not a whole lot of renovation. And the backside of it's actually up on a hill, and trains still run through several times a day. I mean, it's pretty solid, pretty stuck in history. And beneath that, by a post office, they just call it the tunnels. And it's what it is it's an old channel for where they would kind of transport mail and do storage. And I've gone down there. I've actually done a lockdown, so to speak, where my friend Garrett and I stayed there for the night, and we went there at 8 p.m. and we left at 5:30 in the morning. And one of the stories behind that there is that there was a little girl who was a daughter of one of the engineers, and she fell down a flight of stairs by the kitchen, and it killed her. It ultimately, she was, I believe, 7 at the time, 7 or 8, they said. But when I had done that, I actually contacted the owner of that, and he agreed that they do the local like Halloween tours and stuff. He's like, I've never had an actual investigator come to collect evidence or stay the whole night to do that. And while we didn't get, I don't think we got a whole lot of significant evidence. It was my first experience where around 3 in the morning I got so physically sick that I couldn't really. I mean, it was just, and there's somewhere out there a video of me where I didn't want to talk, I didn't want to do anything. I was so overcome with like nausea and just such a powerful headache, and it was just out of the blue too, which
Wow.
normally I just be like, I was up late, I was tired. But to just kind of hit a wall where you don't want to talk, you don't want to do anything. I was sick, I was sweating, I was shaking. And after maybe an hour before we had left, about 4:35ish, it kind of just went away. So that's one of the better local experiences I've had. I have done a couple residential places. I did a place in Tiffin, Ohio. My friend Morgan, who I'd done the Ghost Adventures crew with, she had a neighbor who her granddaughter had said that she talked to the girls with the black eyes in the closet. So we got to do,
Cool.
when you hit up one of those, as she's like leaving for the night, she's like, okay, bye. Don't forget to talk to the girls with the black eyes in the closet. We're like, I'm sorry? Like, what? I remember that one. I remember that one because of, in every single place I swear that I've done has had different like, stigmas behind it, where like I get sick, or I get scratched, or you get the hair in the back of the neck stands up. I remember that one where we were in the bedroom and it got so cold that we could see our breath, which is another kind of like tall tale behind paranormal that you usually
Right.
don't believe. See it in scary movies and stuff all the time, but until you're sitting in a bedroom in the middle of summer and you can see your breath in front of you, it's
Wow, that's
stuff that
awesome.
you don't normally expect. But yeah, again, just some sort of evidence that you catch, it really just kind of reminds you what you're doing, and how scary and how real it can be, but at the same time it's super exciting.
So have you already investigated like your holy grail of places, or is there a holy grail that you haven't been to yet?
I want to go to the Goldfield Hotel in Nevada. Now, I'm not sure how familiar with the Ghost Adventures you are, the Ghost Adventures crew and all their stuff. That was kind of their main. It was actually before,
It was their documentary, yeah.
yeah, their documentary.
Hmm.
And Zach to this day swears they went into that one room and that brick just flew across and
Yeah.
believing. Honestly, I believe that he honestly didn't. They didn't doctor the evidence at all. I have no reason to believe that they would. That's that's a horrifying experience, and they crawled out of the window because they had the owner lock them out, because they say lock the keys, take them away, and they crawled out of the window. They were so scared. So that's
Yeah.
kind of always the place I wanted to go, because something so powerful and so strong and heavy that they can throw a brick and get that on
Yeah.
video. And I'm sure you've seen the video, they turn tail and run, as would
Yeah.
I. They were young. I would have done the same thing. I'm not, judging them or anything, but I can imagine being with a spirit or an entity out there that has that kind of power, and the things that had happened there. It's a Goldfield Hotel, and I'd love to go to the Eastern State Penitentiary too in Philadelphia. I always thought that would be cool, and that's just kind of like because I really like the whole prison vibe, like the Mansfield Reformatory. I
And
love.
that's not too far from you, is it?
It's about a 6 or 7 hour drive, which
Oh, it is.
granted,
Wow.
grand scheme of thing isn't that far, but Waverly Hill Sanatorium is about a 5 hour drive too. I always thought that would be kind of cool to do. My friend Tiffany had gone there and she had a lot of fun experiences there. I say fun lightly because it's also terrifying, but I always thought that'd be kind of a cool place to do. That's where I remember the crew investigated that, and they got a lot of like disembodied screams and that kind of
Yeah.
thing ever since the Mansfield or the reformatory that with Aaron where we got that disembodied one. That one's always kind of been like kind of struck me in a weird way, more fascinated
Mhm.
horror to get like a disembodied scream, to have an entity who has such power that they can scream, without
Mhm.
having any other sort of form of communication. It's got to be just a horrifying experience and a horrifying story to tell, but I would love to do the Goldfield Hotel, if only because of their documentary.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Dave and Tim, and been a Darkness radio listener for a long time. And I remember every time they would talk about the Waverly Hills, they would say that it was, anybody who goes will see at least a shadow. And I think he had two experiences that stick the most with me. One was when he saw a shadow being crawling on the ceiling, and another one was when he was talking to someone and all of a sudden saw a shadow person right behind that person just appear out of nowhere. So he says, from what he says, anybody who goes will have at least a shadow person experience there.
Yeah, and they do. They do the open guided tours and stuff with tour guides and stuff. And I mean, I can't imagine doing that with a group of people, let alone being locked down alone, like how they do it.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of guts to do what they do, especially somewhere like the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. But that place is just crawling with energy that I would love to. But I'd probably pull a Zac and Aaron and crawl out the window if anything like that really happens. But I like to think that I wouldn't. I like to think that I'd be brave enough to stay for the night.
So, I mean, I know this coronavirus has everything kind of on a lockdown, but what does the future look like for you once all this is cleared out? What are you going to be doing?
So there's a cemetery around here. It's just called the Erie Cemetery, and it was established in, I think, January. It was 1890, I want to say. There's a sign that I drive by every time, and I swear if they got rid of it, I would never know what it would say. But I've heard more recently over the last year or so than I had before about stories where people are walking around it at night and they see shadow figures. And that kind of place never really, I was always kind of like cemeteries at nighttime. Yeah, like animals and stuff are running around, and you have
Mm-hmm.
squatters and stuff, unfortunately. But there's just no way to kind of confirm that it's an entity that you're dealing with when it's open to the public all the time.
Okay. Makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
I've had people who have told me about their experiences there where they go to walk it early in the morning, but when it's still dark, and they think they hear somebody talking to them, and they turn and there's nothing there. So, but I think at this time, just because of people neglecting to listen to any of the laws that are put out there, that the security is super heavy everywhere you go right now. So I'm not trying to go there in the middle of the night and have a cop be like, "Excuse me, what the hell are you doing out here without a mask on?" But hopefully once this stuff all clears down, I'd love to go crawl through there. And some of the mausoleums are, kind of open. Some of the older, richer families and stuff like that have it open. So I'd love to go crawl through there and just to see, not even necessarily look for anything paranormal, just to go and experience to see if anything could happen. Maybe if something paranormal happened, to investigate it more seriously in the future. But cemeteries and stuff like that they always have a weird vibe to them, I think, but a weird in a really good way.
So, is there somewhere people can go online to like see the evidence that you've captured over the years, or?
There's not now, and honestly, I have kind of had it all collected to myself until Emily and you had gotten contact with me about doing this, and once I unpack all of my stuff for real and hopefully find my EVP recorder and find a charger for that camera that I can get and upload my CDs, I was actually considering doing some sort of like a blog, or like even just like a Tumblr account where I can post it all, just because it's such a small environment of people who you can really trust to put evidence out there that isn't doctored, and I would hope that I can be one of those people. You put stuff on YouTube like scary ghost voice in the middle of the night, you can't trust that anymore, so I would love to post my own experiences on there, but I just have to find my equipment first. So, but yeah, I think that even there's old pictures on my Facebook account, and they're not anything like evidence wise, but just a bunch of goofy pictures of me and the Ghost Adventures crew and Dave Schrader and Jeff Belanger and all that stuff when I did all that. There's collections of those out there, but nothing evidence wise yet.
Is there somewhere people can go to follow you? Do you have like a YouTube page or like a specific like Instagram or Facebook page where you people can go and follow you and follow your adventures, or do you not have something like that set yet?
I don't have something like that set yet. Actually, my friend Morgan, the one I keep talking about, Morgan Krupp, she had moved to Nashville for her career, but she is going to come back to Ohio where she lived, which is about 2.5, 3 hours away from me now. And once she comes back, her and I are going to get back into investigations and had agreed to start a YouTube channel since, like I said earlier, we want to be, like a source of information that people can trust and people can rely on. And two girls who don't know anything about Photoshop or video editing or anything like that, who can you trust more than two girls who barely know how to work a computer? So hopefully out there, and my Facebook is just, my name, Bree Carnegie, as is my Instagram. But when she does come back and we do start a YouTube channel, I will absolutely be sure to, let you know so you can tell people on the podcast. But with this lockdown and everything and in moving, like I said, it's just been, it's been laying low lately. But hopefully, if anything, this kind of lack of, people around, lack of a crowd has kind of stirred up energy. When they say, construction and stuff like that and homes kind of stirs up energy, I'm hoping that this kind of lack of people around all the time has kind of been stirring up something. So when this lockdown stuff is lifted, that we can go back out and, get some real good stuff to record, get some real
Yeah.
adventures out there.
Yeah, that'd be great to get out there, and all of a sudden it's just like, Ghost Central out there because
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Like
it'd be
they
really
said,
awesome.
with no people out in Italy, that pigs have been roaming the street. I'm hoping that with no people out in Erie, that ghosts have been roaming the street. If I'm lucky, maybe.
Yeah, we did a news story on one of our episodes recently about I think it was a town in Ireland, I think, that was overrun by goats because same thing, people weren't out in the street, so the goat just came in and just took it over.
Yeah, it's honestly it's funny, but it at the same time it does make you wonder, if goats and stuff are taking over nature just as it was before. Who's to say that, people say that lots of, influx of crowds or influx of construction and stuff like that in certain environments can draw spirits out that have lain dormant for, years and years. You can have, you know, who's to say that, if I decided to add a second story or a third story to my house, that this construction wouldn't stir up spirits and stuff that were there lying dormant that I never knew of because everything was just stagnant, So
Yeah.
hopefully maybe, fingers crossed, that something like this would kind of stir up a little bit of energy out there that might get them kind of restless because nobody's out there running around trying to talk to them right now.
They're bored as well. We're bored at home and they're bored out there.
We're all so bored.
All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Bree. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to see what evidence you do finally get up on the on your blogs or website or whatever. Once you get it up, I really want to see that video because I always love video with like shadows and mists and stuff, and those fascinate me the most. So I really hope you can get that up pretty soon.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I'm so happy to share my experiences with you and have someone to talk to about, and somebody that enjoys it as much as I do. So as soon as I get that video recorder, I got to go on eBay. I'm sure there's somebody out there, some tech nerd who's got to have like an old recorder for that or something like that.
Oh yeah.
But the second that I do, you will be the first to know. I promise.
Awesome. I mean, yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, old technology is coming back around. So at some point, you'll find a cable. I'm sure.
Fingers crossed. I'm sure somewhere out there I could probably dig up an old one maybe that I still have, but it will be out there. Like I said, I have the stacks of CDs and everything, so it's all still in there. It's all still there waiting. But
okay, if Polaroids and vinyls can come back, then that cable can come back.
Fingers crossed. I hate to think that it's lost forever. A video of me
No.
filming a black shadow, and even in the video, not saying anything about it. So not seeing it on an LCD screen and only seeing it later. So
Yeah.
we'll find it. We'll dig it up. It'll be just as exciting as the first night I got it. I know it will.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to this special mini episode called Rest Stop. There'll be more coming to you. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care. Take care. Take care.